Let's get ready to rumble.
Yes, we're back. Episode 61 of the Hibs Ramble. Just before I introduce who I'm with this evening, I just want to start us off by saying that in life, there's a few things that come as a guarantee. Obviously, death, taxes, Hearts throwing away a 2-goal lead at Tynecastle, and myself and Liam being the only two constant things on this podcast. How are we doing this evening, Liam? We all good?
I'm very well, mate. I'm very well. Just before we get proper going, I've just got a wee birthday message, a wee birthday shout out. So I'm not too sure how old he is actually, but it's Andy Halliday's birthday today. So we would love to wish Hibs legend Andy Halliday all the best on his birthday. Have a good one, mate, and keep defending the corners the way you defended them in 2016, and you'll go far in this game.
I didn't realise that Mark and Craig, that their pull-out game was so strong. I didn't think Craig's was so strong. I knew Mark's was, for obvious reasons. But yeah, just the two of us this evening. And we're going to dive right into it. So, Liam, 2-2, Tynecastle, yet again. Limbs, yet again, which we will definitely touch on. But we're going to take it right back to the team being announced. I was in the Pope's house at the time when the team was announced. I wasn't overly surprised by it. We spoke about it last week on our preview about maybe going with Doidge instead for the physicality. What was your take on the team, and especially with Hanlon not being in there and Rocky being in there instead?
Yeah, I think if you'd asked me to pick the team, I probably would have picked the same team apart from Hanlon and for Rocky. I'm not too sure what it is about Rocky and playing against Hearts. He always seems to get a starting spot even when he's not really been playing. So it was a surprise for me. But it's Nick Montgomery's first derby. He's probably still not 100% certain who he wants in that back four to stay there permanently. So it's fair enough. But yeah, I think at first glance at the team, I was pretty chuffed with it. Obviously, I would much rather have Hanlon in than Rocky, but I seen Doidge and Venti up front, and I thought about what you said about the physicality and getting in Hearts' faces and stuff, and I was pleased.
We're not going to spend too much time talking about the first half. The players, the management, pretty much everyone that was at the game can agree that we were second to everything, not at the races. Very poor first half. But I do quickly want to touch on it because the one constant thing that seems to be coming out of the weekend's match, and it pains me to say it, but obviously how well Alex Lowry performed in that first half. I saw the highlights back. I've not really saw anything other than that, and from what people have been saying online, and he just seems to be he was getting on everything. He was first to everything. He was everything good the Hearts were doing. The majority of it was coming down our left-hand side, so the Hearts right-hand side, and he just seemed to be controlling the game, which for a 20-year-old in an Edinburgh derby, he would have been really looking forward to that match. How did you see his performance in the first half and the overall Hibs first half performance?
Well, listen, I'm not in the business of praising that lot about anything, but Alex Lowry, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, was head and shoulders above everyone else on that park for the whole time that he was on it. He was outstanding. Every time he got on the ball, he looked dangerous. He looked like he was going to advance with the ball at his feet. He could pick out a really neat pass. He obviously hit the post, which was, he really should have scored in the first half. But I think we maybe helped him a little bit. We were second to everything, really. The desire didn't really look there. It was what you would say is a typical derby out of the last what 10, 15 years, Hearts, regardless of how depleted they are, squad wise, personnel wise, management wise, they always seem to be more up for it than we do, especially in the first portions of the game. I felt like that was the main difference in the first half for sure, because we've got the quality on the park to more than match them. You know, you look at the two squads, it's not like Hearts have a miles better playing squad than we do, because I don't really think that's true. But what helped them was the fact that, you know, they were on top of us the first 5 minutes. They were really pushing, and we couldn't really find a way to deal with it. And then when we did get the ball, we were under a lot of pressure from them. They were really pressing us high, and we were making mistakes, and the fans were getting frustrated. And obviously, it didn't help with Alan Forrest putting in an absolute zinger into the top corner. But honestly, I don't think there's anything you can do about that goal.
Yeah, no, I was just going to come on to that. I alluded to it last week where I spoke about the fact that I thought Hearts would try and come out strong and come out fast, more out of fear of what we could potentially do if they didn't do that. So I wasn't really surprised to see that part of their game plan implemented from them. It was just disappointing to hear and see the way that we were defending and performing in that first half. Obviously, you've said Alan Forrest's goal is a wonder strike, brilliant goal. I'm not taking anything away from that, but what do you think we could have done better? Because in every set of highlights and anything for the game that I've seen, they seem to keep coming down that their right hand side and our left hand side, and Abita seemed to be cutting in quite a lot. Rocky seemed to be quite far out on the left at times. What was your overall take of kind of those two as a left side of the centre, or the left side of our defence? And was there anything that we could have maybe done before the strike to try and prevent it?
I think they were definitely targeting Rocky. I seen a good tweet on 9125 analysis this afternoon talking about our back line and the way that they were pressing and isolating Rocky so that he would get the ball from David Marshall when the ball was back there. Obviously, they saw him as the weak link in our defence. You know, I don't blame him. I love Rocky to bits. I think he's a really good player, but you look at that back line and he probably is the weak link. He probably is a player that you would want to target. In terms of what we could have done differently, I don't know. I think Obita is that kind of left back, Shaun. He's not like Lewis Stevenson, who is first and foremost a left back. I think Obita is first and foremost an attacking player, who is progressed to being a left back throughout his career. Don't know if that's the right word, progress, when he's coming back the way, but he's a left winger and now he's a left back, so he's first and foremost in his head an attacking player probably. I think our take on that was probably right. The fact that we had Obita on one side and Miller on the other to look to get in behind their fullbacks, I think that was the right choice. But you know, you see the first 10, 15 minutes, you see how well Hearts are playing and knocking it about and getting chances, really. And I think there probably should have been a little bit of a change tactically from the sidelines, but you know, it didn't come, or maybe it did come and it just didn't work. You know, it's difficult to tell really from that stand, and I was right down low as well, so it's not the easiest to get a proper tactical view from that portion of the stadium. But no, it was clear to see that Hearts were definitely targeting Rocky, and probably Obita as well, and that's where the first goals come from.
Yeah, and moving into the second half, you would expect a change, either tactically or personnel-wise. I'd imagine, based on Ellie Yuan's post-match interview, that he wasn't the only one that got a boot up the arse at half-time. But just before we get on to Hearts' second goal and then our goals and stuff, how was the beginning of that second half for you? How did you see it pan out? Because as a fan, getting beat yet again at Tynecastle, you would expect to see something change very early in that first half, and it didn't look like it came. Sorry, at the start of the second half, and it didn't look like it came.
No, it didn't, but I felt like the level of performance was a little bit better. I felt like we were coming into the game a little bit more. I said to my dad at halftime, I remember saying he needs to hook Yuan and change it. But now when I look back on it in hindsight, now that the dust has settled and I'm not in that kind of mindset of we're getting beat at Tynecastle, what the fuck's going on? I think if you take Yuan off the pitch, you take one of your best attacking threats off. And obviously, with the fact that he scored twice and got us a point single-handedly, more or less. If you take him off the park, then I don't want to say you're consigned, like resigning yourself to defeat, because I don't think you are, but you're not giving yourself the best chance, to be honest, if you take a player like that off. I mean, if he had 88 bad minutes but 2 good minutes and he scored 2 goals, it makes all the difference really at the end of the day.
Do you think it's played in our favour then, the fact that Nick Montgomery is new to the league? Yes, he'll be aware of the fixture and the magnitude of the fixture, but do you think maybe a more Edinburgh Derby experienced manager would maybe make that change? Or do you think because of Nick's inexperience to that derby, he's thought, you know what, he's one of my best players, I'm going to just persist because I know he's got that magic touch about him, and he's kept him on, and he's just shown him a little bit of trust, similar to how he has starting Rocky in such a big fixture?
Well, I think if it was me in the dugout and I didn't have an affiliation for Hibs and I was just the manager, I wasn't a supporter, then I probably would keep Yuan on, to be honest. But if I was in the dugout as a fan, he would have been hooked. But I don't even know who I would have put on for him. That's the thing. And it all boils down to, like you said, trust. He's obviously trusted Yuan to pull some strings and get us back into the game, and his trust has clearly paid off. Towards the middle of the second half. So listen, it's one of them ones that you probably could have made a case for Yuan getting hooked, and you no one probably would have complained. But the fact that he's kept him on and he's allowed him then to play and he's let him prove himself in the second half, I think Nick Montgomery has been criticised a little bit over the weekend for kind of refusing to change it, refusing to maybe change shape and stuff. But I think he deserves some credit, definitely, for sticking with Yuan and having that belief and trust in him.
Yeah. And then we go 2-0 down. Very unlucky.
I don't know how Alex Lowry can claim that, by the way. If Lewis Miller can't claim that one at Kelly, then Alex Lowry absolutely cannot. The brass neck him to then go and do a knee slide in front of the Gorgie Road end when it's taken the biggest deflection ever off of Christian Deutsch is a joke.
He's hit about 5 corners and he's hit the front post every time. And then obviously we've been very, very unlucky to then concede a second goal there. What, in your eyes, looking back, other than closing him down, could we have maybe done a wee bit differently? Because he'd been hitting the front post of every corner that he'd hit.
I mean, maybe just put an extra man on the edge of the 6, but then you're leaving a space in the middle of the box, and that's absolutely not what you want. Like you say, I think if you do bank on him hitting that first man, then I mean, probably the one time that you bank on him hitting the first man, putting an extra man on the edge of the 6, then that's the one time you'll put in a world at a corner and they'll score from a free header because the man who's meant to be marking the big centre half is on the edge of the 6. But no, I think what surprised me, definitely looking back on it in the highlights, Sean, was it comes right back to him, and the players are static in the box, and it's not even as if one player goes out to push. It's not as if the players step out at all, like you would expect them to do, thinking he's got that ball back now. If we step out and he whips it in, the striker will be offside. So it's bamboozled me, to be honest, what they were doing. But definitely the most frustrating part of it is the fact that it wasn't closed down. quickly enough, and it seemed as if he had 5-10 minutes out there on our right hand side before he decides to shank the ball into the box and hits off Doige and goes in.
And then 2-0 lead. So we've seen it happen before at Tynecastle. Up steps Hibs legend Toby Sibbick with a man of the match performance for the last half an hour. Don't worry, we'll give Ellie Ewan his credit, but if it wasn't for a man like Toby Sibbick, we probably wouldn't be sitting here celebrating that 2-2 win. So fair play to him for his performance. 2 assists. He thought after the first goal, do you know what? Don't want this to happen again. So he punts it long, and then he begins the Hibs attack for the second goal. So we'll come back to the first goal, Liam. Just before that, could you see us getting back into the game? Because like you said, the performance did look like it had lifted. It did look like we were getting a little bit more luck down the left-hand side with Alfie being on the pitch. We were definitely bombing forward a wee bit more, and we were spending a little bit more time in their half and in their final third. But was there any way, other than that, the lucky break and the pinball in the box falling to Ewan with Toby Sibbick's pass, did you see us getting back into it? No?
Nah. Honestly not. I felt like we were coming into it a little bit at the start of the second half, but what Lowry scores at, what is it, 58 or something like that?
Yeah.
And I just thought it's a horrible time to concede a second goal. Knocks the stuff in completely out of Hibs. I turned to my dad and I was like, I might just go, because I'll leave it 2-0, and then by the time I get home it'll be 4 or 5. We've seen this story so many times before, especially last season. You look at the 3-0 game at Tynecastle, it went from bad to worse, even though we looked like we were maybe coming into the game a little bit. But no, I really didn't see a way back into the game for us. Obviously, we'd been there before, 2-0 down, and managed to get a draw. But in that game, I thought we played really well from start to finish, not just in one half. So yeah, I didn't have what I believed, to be honest with you, mate.
What about after the first goal went in? First goal goes in. Did you see Hearts start to retreat a little? I know it happens within an 82-second period, but did you sense a bit of nervousness straight after that, or were you too busy kind of celebrating the first goal? Or because it all happens very quick. Like I said, Toby Sibbick launches the ball forward, gives us the ball back, and then Hearts don't get the ball back until the ball hits the back of the net for a second time. So walk me through those, and I know in your lifetime you've had lots of good 82 seconds, but I've got a couple of questions. I want you to walk me through it, but I also want to know where in your life does that 82 seconds rank? Unless your better instances have been shorter than 82 seconds, of course.
Oh, I mean, I think 82 seconds is generous for me, to be honest, mate. But no, if the first goal goes in, and it's just pinball in the box, really, and obviously Sibbick with a really nice layoff, something that Iniesta probably would be proud of, and Ewan scores, and I can tell you,
look,
it
was a no-look layoff as well, which was even
unreal,
better.
mate. It was unreal, and Ewan obviously smashes it in. And looking back on it, I think it's something that Ellie Ewan he's not really been known for making the right decisions at the right times for a lot of his Hibs career, but he made the right decision there. I think Ellie Ewan of the start of last season would try and place that or round the goalie or do something stupid or like dink him or something, but he smashes it and it goes in. And I tell you, Shaun, I think it is the most subdued celebration I've ever given at an Edinburgh derby. I just went a wee yes, because I was like, I didn't really see us getting back into it, but I was like, we'll believe, and the noise from the Roseburn end was deafening, and you could see the players getting a lift from it. The fans were certainly buoyed by it, and then of course we spark an attack for the next goal. Goes down the right hand side. I turn to my dad and I go, how funny would it be if we scored now? And obviously we did. And with Yuan smashing that one in for the first goal, you probably wouldn't, put it past him to snatch the second chance or to still smash the second chance. But he calmly side foots it into the bottom corner, and with the adrenaline that's pumping through him after scoring the first and seeing the fans go mental, to have that composure and slot that home the way that he did just shows you how far he's come from the start of last season, where he was hanging on to the ball too long, making the wrong decisions more or less every time. Even from the start of the start of that game at Tynecastle, the fact that he's so calmly and composed and struck that into the bottom corner, and I tell you what, I went fucking nuts, absolutely nuts. I more than made up for a subdued first celebration with an extended second celebration. I was in row 6, so I think I was maybe I think they cut off the first couple of rows at Tynie now, so I was maybe in the 4th row back or something like that. But it was no, it was absolute limbs, proper bedlam. It was really, really good. And from that moment, I was thinking, this is our game. We're going to go on and win this now. And it certainly looked that way for a lot of the second half after the goal. But unfortunately, it just wasn't to be.
Where in your limbs ranking is that? So obviously last season your best limbs were our second goal.
Ibrox away.
I'm assuming that the weekend's was better than that, just based on the fact it was 2 goals within 82 seconds. Does it beat that? Does it get into the topic of discussion up there with the best limbs for you?
I don't know. It was great limbs, right? I think situational limbs you look back on more fondly of more important goals. But I went more mental at Nisbet's goal at Ibrox last season because I was right in the thick of it. And I know I was right at the front, but because we'd just scored, a lot of the people that were around me had went down to the front and they were still making their way back up to their seats when we scored the second. So there wasn't an awful lot of folk around me. So it wasn't as limbs as Hamlin's equaliser at Tynecastle. I think if I was to go excluding the cup final, that limbs at Ibrox definitely is number 1. Hanlon at Tynie number 2. I think that one could make its way into the top 3. That Elian second goal, yeah, for sure. I mean, seeing all the fans on the pitch doing knee slides and that was hilarious. I'm not gonna lie.
That's brilliant.
And the crutching that on the park, that's top notch. That's top quality.
You just didn't get patter like that anywhere else at Scottish football, in my opinion.
You don't get any patter like that anywhere else in the world. It only happens from the away end at Tynecastle. Fact.
And taking us into the last part of the last period of the game, obviously you've already said you thought that we could have went on and nicked it. How or what was the Hearts' reaction at that point? Because if the shoe was on the other foot and we were 2-0 up Easter Road, we would go on to lose that game. Or maybe not Nick Montgomery's Hibs, but a previous Hibs side would 100% go on to lose that if once it goes to 2-2. And the way that the Hearts atmosphere can turn toxic very quick, the fact that they don't really like the structure around the club and the management at the moment, Toby Sibic wasn't in favour with the support before the weekend. He certainly isn't now. Hopefully none of the fans saw his Hibs top underneath his Hearts top at full time. But how was the Hearts' reaction, whether it be in the stand or on the pitch, going into the last period of that match?
I think the reaction from the stand and the pitch were 2 very, very different things. The reaction from the stand, as you can expect, is venomous, toxic, probably exactly like it would be if the roles were reversed and they'd come back from 2 goals down at Easter Road. The Hibs fans would be irate, they would be restless. But listen, I've got to give it to the Hearts team. They looked They looked like they had determination. They were getting the ball down and knocking it about. And I actually think for the first 10, 15 minutes after our second goal, Hearts looked, every time they went forward, it looked like they were going to score. Thankfully, they never. But they really looked like they had been spurred on by those 2 goals, which, obviously it doesn't really matter an awful lot now because they never won and neither did we. But, I don't want to say impressed by their reaction, but it surprised me, to be honest. I thought that going from 2-0 up to 2-2 in such a quick period of time against your arch rivals at home would knock the stuffing completely out of you. But it seemed to do quite the opposite for that Hearts set of players. And, they'll probably look at the rest of that game and think we should have won that. And I think the Hibs players will look at the rest of that game and think we should have won that. So probably in the end, a draw is maybe a fair result, but it was a very, very entertaining second half, to be sure.
And then right at the end, or near towards the end, Hearts obviously hit the woodwork. Joe Newell has a chance as well, so it kind of comes back to your point about either side could have potentially nicked it, but both sides, all in all, will probably agree that a point was fair. How do you think Monty will look back on that first experience in Edinburgh Derby, going in with his normal shape, 4-4-2, not really changing anything on the face of it anyway, and still coming out with a point? Because for me, I think that's probably a huge learning point for him, but also a huge benefit. The fact that we were 2-0 down, tactically, it didn't look like he really changed anything. He just had a little bit of belief in the players, and they repaid them, and we still came away with a point.
I think he probably would have been proud of the player's character, certainly in the second half. But it just strikes me as why hasn't he changed anything when we're 2-0 down? I know he brings Alfie on, and Alfie does change the game, really. I mean, a lot of Hearts fans have said that to me, that Alfie changed the game. I thought he was outstanding on Saturday. I think I'm saying it's baffling that he never changed it. I'm not a football manager. And I think what you're going back to saying about belief, he obviously believes in himself and his tactics, and he believes in his players. And that might shoot us in the foot a couple of times throughout the course of the season. But if he has shown that belief and that sort of solidarity and stability within the playing staff that's on the park, then surely that can only be a good thing. He's probably going to be disappointed in the manner that we lost the goals. I feel like the lead up to the first goal was preventable. The strike, I don't think you can do anything about that. It's a wonder strike. Really think we probably could have cleaned one of the Hearts players out on the line. Willie Collum was letting an awful lot go in terms of not booking players and stuff. Second goal is, it's like a brain fart in defence, not going out and pressing him. I think he'll be really disappointed in the manner that we lost the goals, but definitely proud of the character that we showed to come back.
And I believe that you have a pie review as well, a Tynecastle pie review. Would I be correct in making that assumption?
I absolutely do, Sean. I absolutely do.
Which pie is the best in the pie review? Which pie is the best in the pie review?
Now, I can't remember if it was you or if it was one of the other boys in the chat mentioning about this pie, so I will wait and see what your review is. I wasn't really paying attention at the time because I just got knocked back from a Coliseum tour although we turned up on time, and the tour guide was right outside. They decided to tell us that they weren't going to let us in. So
Roberto Mancini must condemn.
And then after we'd got knocked back for the Coliseum, I looked at my phone and saw it was 2-0. So I wasn't having a very good 5-minute spell. So I'm hoping that when all of this was going on, you had devoured a delicious pie, at least.
Yes. Well, we'll jump straight into it, Sean. Uniqueness is a 1. Now, I'd had a few bevies by this point, and I am not too sure what else they did. I was just wanting a steak pie. They might have done something really fancy or something really different, but I didn't look at the menu. I was just like, I'm wanting a steak pie. So uniqueness is a 1 for a steak pie. The crust is a 5. And the crust was proper crispy all over. Perfect liftage. As crispy on the bottom as it was on the rim and all the way around the sides. It was a perfectly cooked pie. I think it would have been straight out the oven. Maybe straight out the oven and sat for 5-10 minutes.
So what you're saying is since the start of the Piemiership at the weekend, you had the greatest rim that you've had.
Yes, absolutely. I've had, this is by far and away the best crust that I have ever savoured on a pie at the football, bar none. It was sensational and it tasted really nice as well. So filling, Hearts are getting a 3. Now the filling was very, very good. It was really nice. The gravy was really good. The steak was really good, but there was far too much gravy. The ratio was off. There wasn't enough steak. The gravy was like that thick way that it's proper thick, and the steak was really good as well. But there wasn't enough steak for me, and there was far too much gravy. So get the ratio right, and it could easily be a 4 or a 5. It could easily be a 4 or a 5. Hearts catering staff. It really could. Temperature.
In your afternoon, were you having this pie as well?
This was about 38, 39 minutes.
Right, okay.
Because I like to go down and beat the queue. You know what I mean? I like to beat the queue and then get myself back up to the seat. So
yeah,
temperature's a 5.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think it was out of the oven and then maybe sitting for 5 or 10 minutes. So it had that time to cool, but not cool too much. So like the perfect lukewarm temperature for me, in my humble opinion. The price is a 2. £4, Sean. £4 it cost me. To be honest, I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad about it because it was a good pie. But £4 is a bit steep for my liking for a steak pie, which gives Hearts a combined score of 16 out of 25.
That's a very good score. And realistically, the only thing that's letting it down there is the uniqueness, which at times can't be helped depending on what you're actually after.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which pie is the best in the pie review? Which pie is the best in the pie review?
Right, and what we'll do is we'll jump into the listener questions, and for those on YouTube now, they will be able to see that the 3 of us are now here to answer the questions, and no, Mark and Craig have not joined us. So if you want to find out who has, jump over to YouTube and you can find out.
I don't think he's going to be an awful lot of use, to be honest, Sean. You don't talk an awful lot, do you, wee man? Eh?
I'm sure he brings plenty to the table.
Plenty of spew and piss and shite.
Now it's time to answer the Hibs Ramble listener questions.
Straight after the match, Keith jumped in with, shame we couldn't win it at the death, but I figure we have the best of both worlds. Hearts throw away a 2-goal lead at Tynie, plus Stevie will still be in the job for a little bit longer, or Frankie, or whoever is actually in charge. I've lost track.
No, for sure. I think if you ask any Hibs fan at 2-0 down, would you take 2-2? Then they'd be biting your hand off for it. Yeah, definitely. I think it's one of those ones where I'll look back on it and I'm disappointed that we never saw it through and won the game. But listen, 2-2, I think it's a much better point for us than it is for them at the moment. That's for sure.
Yeah. Gav Dick, Limbs looked absolutely unreal when Yuan slotted the second. 10 million out of 10.
Yeah, the Limbs were great. I wish Mark was on because he was, and Craig, because they were both going on about how good the Limbs were. So I would like to have heard it from their perspective. Yeah, I would. But yeah, no, the Limbs were great, and if you're listening and you were there, let us know what the Limbs were like for you.
Now, apologies, John. Your question was a little bit further down, so I did not lead with that one. Hopefully you will forgive me. My humblest apologies. So yeah, what have you had going to have? I had a pizza because we're obviously just back and we don't really have much in the house. I'm doing a Liam, yeah.
Well, I'm meant to be having sausage and mash for my tea tonight, but I took Mila to the park earlier on and I drove past McDonald's to get her a Happy Meal for her tea, and I got myself an emergency double cheeseburger. So I'm not that hungry at the moment. So I might have some sausage and mash later on, or I might just have nothing.
I like how
And
you've painted it as a emergency Happy Meal for her.
no, it was a normal Happy Meal for her. And it was an emergency double cheeseburger for me because I was starving, and I knew that I was coming back to do the pod, so I wasn't going to get the chance to eat until later on. But it was maybe in hindsight not the best choice, because now I am not hungry, and Megan will be hungry, and I'm going to need to make sausage and mash for her and not eat it myself. It happens, mate.
I'm assuming something has happened at half time because Harvey has asked you specifically what you have against the Hearts wee keeper at half time. So if you could elaborate on that once you're able to compose yourself, that would be great.
Oh, bless you, Tommy. And now, so they had little small-sided games, right, at half time, and the game that was closest to the Roseburn was going on, and the goalie that was in nets for one of the teams, it was doing my fucking head in, to be honest, right? He kept getting the ball back in the goals and like having a mazy up the park and losing the ball and the other team would score. And like I'd mentioned earlier, I'd had a couple of babies by this point, Sean, so I was letting the boy ken. I was going, what are you doing? Why? And I was getting a little bit angry, thinking, imagine if David Marshall kept going on mazes up the park and we conceded goals. Would you be happy about it?
It's not on.
Would you be happy about it?
No, it's
Would
not
you be
on.
happy about it, Thomas?
I'm glad to keep my mouth full.
No, disgusting, to be honest. And yeah, no, that's what I've got against that the wee goalie at the Hearts game. So there's your answer, Harvey. Cheers.
Right, so overrated, underrated, Liam Riley special. Look forward to these every single week. Probably my favourite part of the pod, not going to lie. Gary Caldwell.
Underrated.
Yeah, I would say the same. Matty Jack.
I didn't see an awful lot of Matty Jack, but I met him in Dusseldorf on my stag, and he was a top guy. So for that, I'm going to say underrated because he was a nice boy. He did kick us out of his pub, though.
That's probably justified, though. Let's be serious. You probably deserve.
Well, it was Mark's fault. Mark and Mother Pal Graham were body sparring in his pub, and he wasn't having it. So I think it's fair enough. I mean, I had no part to play in it. Me and Mark then kept going. We kept going back at the night time, like when he'd left, and just going at the pub and singing Matty Jack, and they were like, he's not here, and we're like, aye, but Matty Jack,
and they're like, fuck off.
Aye, basically.
I would also say underrated. However, I feel inclined to say that I'm seeing a lot of people who clearly didn't watch him play based on their age on Twitter. Big him up, which they're right to do so, but they won't have watched any games.
Well, I don't really remember him at all, but he's a nice enough guy.
Great guy, great player. Philip, I can't remember how to pronounce this.
Philippe
Moraes. I used to love him when he was at Hibs.
I'm going to say underrated here because I did like him when he was at Hibs, and I felt like the majority of the fan base didn't really rate him. Yeah. If I remember rightly, I might be completely miles off here, but
I agree. I think he was underrated. Don't get me wrong, like he's not like the best wingers that we've had. Like he's not underrated in that sense, but he's underrated for the team that he was in at that time period. during.
I thought he
his
played quite well through the
stint.
middle as well. When he played in the middle of the park, he was pretty good. He was pretty versatile, and probably one of the only Portuguese players that I can remember playing for Hibs, apart from Tavares and Ricardo Vaz.
Brian Graham. I'm
probably gonna get slaughtered for this, but underrated. I thought Brian Graham was a clutch player for Hibs when we had him. And really, is that what you think? My best memory of Brian Graham, and I'm sure I voted for it at the time for goal of the season, was we beat Morton 4-0 at Easter Road, and Jason Cummins whipped in a really, really deep cross from out on the left-hand side, and Brian Graham bullet header. I think it was probably for the fourth goal or something. And I was like, that's one of the best goals I've ever seen, because the cross was so deep and the header was so accurate. And for that reason and that reason only, and the goal against Dunfermline, Brian Graham underrated for me.
I don't see why you would get slaughtered for it, if I'm honest. Because I do think he was underrated.
I don't think anyone really liked him though.
Nah,
And
I think he just
people will
doesn't
say,
look like he should have been a Hibs player, and that's just probably because of how tall he is and how he's built.
I think people will say overrated because he scored a few goals, but people thought he was pish. I thought he was, because we had Grant Holt at that time as well. What he brought to the table, I think, was completely overshadowed by how good Grant Holt was at what he did. I think they were very similar kinds of players. Definitely a Neil Lennon player. I thought he was definitely wasn't the best striker at the club at the time. Definitely wasn't the worst striker at the club at the time. Underrated for me. And do you think so as well, Thomas? Yeah.
And we could have a clean sweep of underrated here, depending on your answer. It won't be a clean sweep from my part, but the last name on the list, well, the last name, but then we've got two things left. Alan Stubbs.
Overrated.
Glad
I
we're on
think,
the same page.
and it hurts me to say it because he obviously won us the cup, but 2 failed attempts to get out of that league against 2 really, really poor Rangers teams. The Hearts team was good. The Hearts team were preparing for their first season in the Championship, the season they went down. So I think they were always going to win that division. What are you doing? But no, Rangers were piss poor both of those seasons, and the fact that we lost out in the playoffs to Falkirk, we lost a cup final to Ross County. It's all really overshadowed by the fact we won the cup. And yes, I would trade everything that went against us in his time at Hibs again. I would go through it all again for the chance to win the cup. But yeah, I think overrated purely because he won that and he failed to get us out of the division and lost another cup final.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think he done us a favour by leaving when he did as well. I think it was on his 100th game as well, so it's kind of.
I think the cup final was his 100th game.
Aye, so it's kind of worked out quite well for him. Great man manager, don't get me wrong. Really good man manager, which is obviously what we've been lacking probably since then. But as an overall, just you still see Hibs fans wanting him back now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think the football that he played on the whole was good, Sean. It was an attractive brand of football. And I'm not saying that he's a bad coach or anything, but he was blessed with a brilliant squad of players. He really, really was. And I know that he amassed a lot of that himself. And but I mean, if he came back now, he wouldn't be able to do the same style of football with the players that we've got. And
no,
I wouldn't. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sounding like I hate the guy. I don't. He's a Hibs legend, and quite rightly so. And everyone will look back on that day in May 2016 with the greatest of fondness. But I think for everything else that went against us, the only thing you can really say is overrated, to be honest.
Yeah, And doing the twirly with your scarf above your head.
I'm not even going to give that. I'm
I
not
don't
even going to give an.
see
I'm
why
not
this
even going
could
to
be
answer
anything
that.
other than overrated.
I don't understand, and it's not even just Hearts fans, but loads and loads of fans up and down the country do it. I don't understand. Like, why? Doesn't even look good.
Weirdos. It looks minging.
Yeah, and also, by the way, just on things that look minging, can we have a big shout out for the Gorgie Ultras and the incredible display at the weekend? It was absolutely shite.
It was honking, and the banner at the bottom wasn't even central.
Mate, it was like all the way over to the right. It was stupid. Absolutely stupid. And you can, when you go under the bridge and that on the march, you know what they'd spray painted?
What?
They'd spray painted on the wall, "Welcome to hell." Oh no, it wasn't real. It wasn't real hell. It was just Tynecastle, Tommy. It's okay.
That's pathetic. That is absolutely pathetic.
I can.
Last couple of questions before we finish up and move on to our close. Not our physical clothes that we're wearing, the closing of the pod, obviously. Liam, where do you get your door handles from? James is desperate to know.
I've not got a new one yet. I've not got a new one. So basically, the context behind this is, well, me and Mark were going to record last night, right? And I was on my way through to the room to record the pod, and I shut the living room door, and like the mechanism inside the door broke. So like I knocked on the door and I was like, "Oh, Megan, any chance you can open the door from that side?" She tried to open the door, pulled the handle, and the handle came right off. And I was like, "Oh no!" And she was like, "Liam, you're going to need to kick the door down. You're going to need to kick the door down." And I was like, "I'm not going to kick the door down because one, Mila was in her bed. I was like, I'll wake her up and she'll go mental. And two, I'm probably going to injure myself very badly." So I decided not to kick the door down. And then after about 45 minutes of tinkering and sticking screwdrivers in places, I managed to open the door. And I still have no idea how. I'm not DIY savvy at all. Don't even know why I've got a screwdriver. I'll never fucking use it. I managed to get the door, like the door open and take the latch out of the door. So we have got a handleless living room door at the moment. And the funny thing is, I had to keep going out the back door and in the front door to get the door open and like get my tools and stuff. So yeah, it was a bit it was a bit of a nightmare last night, but we managed it in the end. But to answer your question, James, I don't know where I'm going to get my replacement door handle from. Maybe Amazon, maybe.
And it's worked out for the best because we're here this evening, just the two of us.
Yeah, and I'm not locked inside the living room. I can freely roam my house this evening.
John came in with the final question as well, and he asks what the Ramble's go-to Subway order is. And Big Bread Bins has appreciated said question and asked if it was inspired by the Australian national team video that Boyle, Cummins and Suter.
Was it the video or was it the
What?
strip that they brought out? Oh no, it wasn't a Socceroo strip, was it? It was a.
No, I think I don't know if it was a team down south or whatever, but anyway, I might actually have to buy that.
I would really like it if it wasn't a Subway. Like if it wasn't the Subway logo, but it was just an intertwining yellow and green pattern. I think that works. That's disgusting, Thomas.
Yeah. So before we move on to your dad's question, we'll leave that to last because he gets abused every week anyway. So we'll try and not abuse him this week. But what is your go-to Subway order, Liam?
I don't get a Subway very often. When I worked at Visit Scotland, when we were in the office all the time, I did used to get a Subway on occasion. And then I would usually go for the chicken tikka, cheese and toasted. And then I would, on top of that, have lettuce, jalapenos, peppers, some onions, and then some of the chipotle sauce.
The chipotle sauce is the only option, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the best.
It's great. It's a great sauce. I do like the chili one as well, like the sweet chili, but you can't have chipotle and chili and jalapenos because then your arsehole will be burning the day after.
I normally, I used to work. I spent a couple of months stint working in Subway when I lived in Australia.
Oh wow!
And to this day, it is by far the greatest job that I've ever had. Purely because you would get free lunch, and the free lunch was a refillable drink in a 6-inch, but that's only what went through the till. So if the manager wasn't in, you were double meat in, you were double cheese in, you were foot long, you were getting a bottle of juice, you were getting cookies, you were getting whatever. So I stand by the fact that I've said that is the greatest job that I've ever had.
Well, maybe you'll work in Subway one day, pal. Don't worry.
Didn't care what your order was, Tommy. And nobody asked.
you know part of the ramble, mate.
I remember working in there one Easter weekend, and they had all the food that was going to go out of date because they were closing for the Friday and they were closing for the Monday, and then they had like a bank holiday or something, so we were closed on the Tuesday as well. So I was working the Thursday shift, and then it was going to be closed for like 4 or 5 days. And I hadn't realised that was probably the greatest decision that I've ever made, because at the end of the shift they were going to chuck everything out. And me, being over there for a year and travelling, went, whoa, wait now. I'll be taking all that food. And I was staying at my cousins at the time, auntie and uncles. So I didn't even tell them that I was coming home with this. I just walked home. My boot was full. I had all the bread that was left, all the meat, all the lettuce, all the salads, all the sauces. It looked like I was working Subway at the back of my van. I just took it all the way home, and then my auntie didn't need to do a shop for about 2 weeks because we just managed to kind of ration it out. And
Did you have to make all the sandwiches?
Nah.
So it actually tasted like a Subway.
Left that to them. So
Subway DIY, mate.
After all of that, my go-to normally is just a chicken and bacon with cheese, toasted chipotle sauce. But they brought out the nacho chicken recently, and since they brought that out, that's been my go-to. But quite a few places have stopped putting it on the sandwiches now for some stupid reason. Don't know why.
I do like an Italian BMT as well. I've got to admit, I really do like an Italian BMT.
But what has annoyed me with that question is he's not told us what his order is, because he clearly rates Subway like myself.
Yeah,
it's one of the best out there in my opinion. But he's not told us what his order is. So John, get your finger out and tell us what yours is so we can rate it for you.
See, the only thing about Subway, right, is like you need to go in for a Subway. Like Subway doesn't travel well if you order it on like Just Eat. I've ordered it on Just Eat a couple of times and immediately regret it. Like it really doesn't travel well. Whereas like a McDonald's or a KFC or something like that travels all right. You don't particularly need to go in and have them, but I feel like you need to go in and have a Subway and have it as fresh as you can, because
I ordered a Subway when Mixu Patalainen had that thing down Leith. I think it was last year or the year before, when it was like chat with Mixu Patalainen or whatever it was, and I hadn't ate all day, so I ordered one, and I was scanning the Subway front row while Mixu was chatting. But when it arrived, because they didn't put food on or anything at the venue, and it arrived, and literally none of the meat was in the sandwich whatsoever. The sandwich was there, and all the meat had fallen out of it, and the sandwich was burnt to a crisp. So,
ideal.
Aye, so you're correct in what you're saying. Ordering it isn't ideal. It definitely does not travel well.
And even like because when it's cheese and toasted, the cheese like firms back up again by the time it gets to you.
Aye, you need it fresh, 100%.
It's not ideal, is it? Not ideal.
No. Liam, before we move on to fantasy football and you bringing the episode to a close, your dad, which you should already know your answer to this, apart from following Hibs, what other hobbies do the Ramble presenters have?
I like that. I really enjoyed the fact that he said presenters.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think we should maybe speak for Mark and Craig here as well, even if we're making it up. I know Mark likes to go to the gym. and drink. I don't know an awful lot.
Colin's not going to like my answer because my answer is travelling to other European countries to watch football. So I don't know if that counts. If we can, Colin, if you're happy to count that, I like travelling. I just like travelling full stop.
Yeah, I think everyone likes travelling, Sean.
Yeah, but like I like to make a point of doing it quite a lot. Do you know what I mean? And seeing different places rather than always going to Spain and Greece every summer for 2 weeks. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I like
Right, Thomas, that's enough.
well, we need to
Good
ask.
boy. For me, do you not want me to tell my hobbies? Yeah. You want to sit up again? My hobbies for me, I've recently procured a set of golf clubs, and I'm gonna take up golf. I think my dad likes playing golf, so I think I'm going to start doing that. I can play the guitar. I like playing the guitar. I'm a man of many talents, to be honest, Sean. But yeah, football.
Master of none, though.
Yeah, exactly. Football and this are probably my biggest hobbies.
Hopefully that answers his question. Do you know what? I've wanted to get back. I say get back into it. I was class at high school. That was about it, is badminton. But for the life
I
of me,
think everyone was good at that at high school.
I think I played it in about 14 years.
Yeah.
But Colin, I don't know what other hobbies you have apart from collecting super dry jackets and buying people brew instead of crisps. If you can let us know, that would be great.
Well, I know he's away. He's leaving. Well, this will obviously come out on Thursday morning, but he's going away to go and see his pal in Spain. His mate has got a house over in Spain, and he goes over every now and then. He's like building something over in Spain as well. So he goes over and he helps his mate build whatever he's building, but he doesn't really do an awful lot apart from get buried. And so he's away for a week on Thursday. So have the best time, Colin. Hope you enjoy yourself, mate.
And you can update everyone on the fantasy football, Liam. And I think I am running clear of you three. Definitely not running clear at the top. I'm miles away for that. But I'm definitely, last time I checked anyway.
Yes. Right, fantasy football update. Now, we have obviously now been going for 8 game weeks. And Sean, it is a very, very similar top 5. At the top, we've got Dan Taylor with McGinn and Tonic, who seem to be up there or thereabouts all season. They've not moved at all in the last game week. And neither has second place. That is Hibs for Europe. They've got 461 points behind McGinn and Tonic's 491 points in first. Moving up 5 places to third place with 458 points is What's the Story Ross McCrory. Great name, shite player, fair dues. In fourth is Tim Odds 16. They move up 1 place with 455 points, and then finishing off the top 5, moving down 2 places from last week, is I Caramba Umba Chumba FC, and they have 454 points, 1 point behind Tim Odds 16. So that wraps up the top 5. I'm not actually going to tell you where my team is because they are languishing down the bottom of the table. But listen, it's not about winning, it's about taking part, Sean, and you know that better than anyone.
I definitely do, and that's why I am 15th in the league and the highest out of the 4 of us.
You've not been changing your team either, have you?
I've actually, whenever we've mentioned it on this, I've went on it and fixed it when we've been speaking about it. But I've not been going in and changing it.
Well, I've not changed it once. I can't even remember who's in my team. Let me have a look and see who's in my team. How did I get to it? I honestly don't even know how you get to it because I've only been in it a few times. So I've got. To be fair, it's an all right team. I've got Kel Roos in goals, a back four of Obita, Obalai, Tavernier, and Mugabe, which isn't too bad. A midfield four of Brad Lyons, who's scored a couple of goals this season, Todd Cantwell, Clarkson, and Dylan Levitt. Obviously, he's not got an awful lot of game time. And then up front, I've got Furuhashi and Yuan.
So your midfield's not doing you anything, that's your problem.
And then I've got Carter Vickers on the bench for some reason.
Maybe because he was injured at the start of the season.
Maybe you're right. But yeah, so I don't know really what wild card and triple captain do. I'm not very experienced in the fantasy football.
Wild card, you can change your whole team, make as many changes as you want. And triple captain is what it says on the tin. It gives you triple points for your captain for that week.
Fair dues.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully I'll start climbing up the table. To be honest, mate, I just forget. I don't remember to update the team, so I'll probably I get the emails and I get the push notifications every week, and I'm like, oh, I should go and do that, and then I don't because I just forget, and that's it. But if I've got aspirations of finishing in a European spot, I really need to start sorting out my team.
And that brings us to a close. Episode 61, done and dusted. 61, done and dusted. Thank you so much to everyone who just listened to that fantasy football update, because if it was me, I would have turned off by now. That's for
so
sure.
bad, to be honest.
So very well done if you made it through. For those that are in Spain going to watch the Scotland game, enjoy. For those that are not, enjoy regardless. And we will be back next week. Looking forward to a humongous game at Ibrox, one in which we will be taking points off them.
Well,
Thanks
here's
so
hoping.
much for listening.
Cheers.
Cheers, cheers.
Bye-bye.
Let's get ready to rumble.